Hey, this is Eric Gardner, and this is my podcast. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to be recording some personal stuff here and some interviews that might be kind of interesting. So if you like it, subscribe, get notified, and listen and learn a lot. Some of what I wanted to just tell you this time is, some of my origin story, I guess. Where did I come from? A lot of people have known me, depending on who, but if you're in Salt Lake, it's probably been the last, 10 to 12 years, because that's when I moved to Salt Lake. Before that, I was born in Los Angeles. I moved to Utah as part of the early migration to Utah, the 90s migration. You could say the market fell out in Los Angeles and Southern California in the early 90s. It was right before the Northridge earthquake, because I remember my dad, he still had to go back. He still owned rental properties there. But we came to Utah partly because we're LDS, Mormon, and partly because my stepmom's daughter moved here, and her and her mom, so my stepmom, they had a really good connection. So we kind of followed after she moved here for many reasons. And it turned out to be a really good thing, because while I like California, I like Utah a lot better. And you can see that even now. We're in January of 2022. So many people are still moving here. So obviously Utah's better than California, right? At least that's my opinion. But so we moved here, I think it was in probably 93. I was in fifth grade. We had a fifth wheel. My dad had a 32-foot fifth wheel that we had for quite a bit of time. We had lived in it previously. But we took it to the KOA on North Temple here in Salt Lake, and from there we set up a little home base at the KOA, and my dad got a job. I think my mom probably got a job too at the time, but we found a house eventually in Clearfield, Utah, which, if you don't know where Clearfield, Utah is, you probably never will. It's on the way to Ogden, but when you talk about Clearfield, because it's just like this side city to the main city nearby, which is Layton. So whenever I have to explain Clearfield, I just say, it's right next to Layton. And then they're like, oh, yeah, I know that place. So grew up there, started fifth grade there at Antelope Elementary School. My stepmom ended up working there as like the computer teacher, whatever computers were like in the early 90s. She was teaching us how to type and things like that. So I actually had her, I think, in sixth grade before I went off to junior high. But grew up there, at age 19, I went on an LDS mission like a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. It was just kind of like the best option for me personally. Good way to spend 2 years. I guess you learn stuff along the way. So I went to New Jersey on that mission, had a lot of fun, came back, kept going to school, ended up at Utah State eventually, finished up a master's degree in economics. And then started a career. We'll dive into that career more on later on. But right now, I've had a real estate license for 5 years, opened up a brokerage at the same time, and I work on a lot of cool, fun things now. One reason why maybe I say Utah, I love Utah. People ask me if I'd move. My wife asked me if I'll move, and I honestly, no, I love Utah. And there's a lot of things I've done here over the last. I've been here almost 30 years, I guess. I'm 38 right now. But some of the things I really like here, I like the skiing. When I was in high school, my first job was at Target. You'll hear about Target, I'm sure, a ton, because I worked there forever. But I worked at Powder Mountain. I'd get off school, drive up there, work the night lift operation job, and it was a lot of fun. So I grew up snowboarding. Now I ski with my kids. I love skiing. I love all the resorts we have. I love the snow. So that's number one. One thing in Utah I love, it's the skiing. Another thing, I love the seasons. I love seasons a ton. Here we have them all. And for me, it gets too hot, but I love seasons. Next, I love the reservoirs and lakes we have in Utah. I grew up, having a lot of fun at Pineview Reservoir and outside of Ogden. But think about Lake Powell. That's another big reservoir that everyone travels for. So I love the reservoirs here. Next, as you probably know, I like the outdoors. So I like hiking also along the Wasatch Front and all the other places. Utah does have 5 national parks. Surprisingly, I've only ever been to 3 of them. And Zion's, I think I've only been to once to go for a little hike with my in-laws. So I don't know why, I just haven't got out in the national parks very much. My parents, we didn't do that as a family, but later on, we got into hiking more. We were into car camping. And then the last thing that's really awesome about Utah is the grid system for our roads and our streets. If you come to Salt Lake, or if you come to almost any town in Utah, the main part of town is a grid. So it's easy to find everything. So to recap that, my hit list or my love of Utah: skiing, the outdoors, the seasons, the reservoirs and lakes, because they're so fun to hang out at no matter where you're at, and then the grid system, which is awesome. And obviously now, Brigham Young, back in the 1800s, he called this the Crossroads of the West. Utah is where the Pacific and the Union Railroad met at Promontory Point near Corinne, Utah. And to this day, it's still the Crossroads of the West. I truly believe that. We have an amazing economy here. We have super low unemployment. With other recessions, we're typically more insulated than like coastal cities like Los Angeles. We're more insulated than Las Vegas. We have a very diverse economy. And I think that's partly due to the legislator, due to our awesome workforce here. So I love Utah for that, being the Crossroads of the West. And I think our legislator they're still pushing that. We as Utahns, we believe in that. And we got a great international airport with Salt Lake City International Airport. It's a huge Delta hub. So when you got to travel, it helps. We have a huge shipping area. So like right now, commercial warehouse is going through the roof. Everyone's piling money into Utah to buy commercial warehouse. And we're building this inland port. And for good or for bad, we do have a pollution problem here, and I'm not sure if the inland port's going to really help that. It's not. But it's making our economy bigger and I guess more diverse with a lot more things. But we'll dive into that more later on. Going back to my life and like the things that influenced me as a child, we grew up LDS. We were Mormon. Both my parents were converts. We were California Mormons, which is a lot different than being a Utah Mormon. I'm sure I'll hear some flack on that, but it was a pretty relaxed childhood, I guess. We went to church, but we worked on the house the rest of the day on Sunday. So obviously the church had a big influence on my life. I went through all the programs, all the priesthood stuff, went through the Boy Scouts, got the Eagle Scout, got the Duty to God Award, went on a mission, did all those things. So obviously a lot of my background, a lot of my influence in life is going to be church related. Some of my beliefs. Right now, I'm definitely not a practicing Mormon, but it shaped my beliefs in a lot of ways. I think it also shaped some of my attitudes and outlooks on life, partly because the way my parents interacted with the church and with how they treated me with the church. My dad, he was a cross-country, on-the-road trucker. He came home every couple of weeks, and it was pretty lax. I didn't have those parents that were aggressive Mormons where it's like go to church or die. But either way, it's going to be an influence, and I'm sure you're going to see hints of that throughout the podcast, because most people in Utah, they either grew up in the church or they're still LDS, or there's a big LDS church influence here, and you're going to hear about it all the time. And I think it's going to be some great conversations. Big impacts now for me. Utah State was a great influence. The reason I went there was based on someone I met on my LDS mission, Trent Hunsaker. He was there in recruiting, and we became really good friends. And so I moved to Logan to go to Utah State, primarily for that, to hang out with him, ride motorcycles. It was a lot of fun. So he's part of that backstory. He's a great friend still. But Utah State was a big influence. Through Utah State, I got more into cycling, like riding bicycles, road bikes, cyclocross bikes. That's also a big influence in my life. And you'll hear about that too, because now I spend a lot of time and resources putting on a professional criterium race here in Salt Lake. It's going to be our third year this year, and the event continues to grow, and it's a huge passion project of mine. Just so you're aware, I'm a big believer in giving back to the communities that give to you. Success is awesome, And I'm super driven by success, and I'm driven by making money, but I'm driven by using that stuff to help others or give back to the communities I love. I think you see a lot of times this take mentality, and that is something I don't want to have in my life. If you know me, you probably know I'm a giver. I'll always help people out. And that goes back to the cycling thing. Right now, I'm spending a lot of time and energy on, bringing professional criterium racing to Salt Lake City because it's such a fun sport. I love it, and I'm going to continue doing that for a long time to come. So that's a little bit about my backstory. I think we're going to get more of these lined up in the future. Plan on releasing a podcast once a week with lots of great content. We're going to bring on some great people to talk about. Obviously, with me being primarily in real estate, so a few things that I do. I help people buy and sell houses. I own a real estate brokerage in downtown Salt Lake called Blackwell Realty Group. My website's heyeric.com. It's real estate, but it's also all the other stuff I do. Right now, I'm also flipping houses with my business partner. I'm putting on that Salt Lake Criterium. I'm with family all the time. So there's a lot of things going on, and you're going to hear about all of it through this. And hopefully some of it's inspirational, and you grow and learn, and hopefully I grow and learn, and hopefully this becomes a good log for all the things I'm doing in life. But again, thanks for joining me on this first podcast. And if you have any topics you want to talk about or want me to interview anyone, put it down. Send me an email, eric@blackwellrealtygroup.com, and we can check that out. Thanks.